words, it should be a 50-50 proposition with regards to this child's development. Any comments about parenting, the role it plays with regards to our students' achievement? Yes, is it Gwen?
Gwen,
Right.
in terms of helping parents with parenting skills, what do you recommend? You mentioned being where the parents are, and parents are getting younger. I'm thinking again in terms of parenting skills, where you, let's say that you are in an urban setting and you have many young parents, and they don't seem to know which end is up. You talk about process.
And see, that's my point. Two things. One, I don't believe that there's not a parent in this country that does not want the best for their child. I sincerely believe that. But I also believe that before you deal with child development, you have to deal with self-development. When those parents that are 13, 16, 19, 21 and the like, they have not found themselves yet. And so before giving them a workshop on child development, we have to work with them on their own self-esteem, on their own relationship, on how to find a job. So I believe many times we have not asked them what kind of workshops they are interested in. And Head Start is more successful because they ask the parents what they need, rather than us deciding for them what they should have. Okay? Let me go on because of our time. Let me move to the third area, and that's one of my favorites, and that's the issue of student self-esteem. I sincerely believe that education is more than reading, more than writing, is more than math. It should first of all teach our children who they are. You see, if you don't know who you are, then you will not know what to do with your life. And if you don't know what to do with it, then you won't know how to achieve your goals. So Alex Haley raised the question of who am I? And he asked his mother, father, aunts, and his uncles who he was. Some people told Alex they were Negro. Some told Haley they were colored. Others told Alex they were black. Some said they were Afro-American. Some told Alex they were African. And lastly, some said American. Now, we have the only children and some adults that give 6 different answers to a very simple question like, who am I? Again, you cannot teach a child that is, first of all, not know who he is. It's more important than reading, math, and science. So we began to ask ourselves, why do Germans call themselves Germans? Why do Chinese call themselves Chinese? And we were told there's a land called Germany. There's a land called China. So let's go back to a world map. Germans are Germans, land called Germany. Chinese are Chinese, land called China. Let's go to a world map. Is there a place in the world called Negro land? What about color land? What about black land? What about Afro-American land? There's only 2 answers left, Africa and America. But be honest, what comes to most of our children's mind when they hear the word Africa? Tarzan? Running around, no clothes on? Be honest. And what about America? Red, white, and blue and apple pie? That's because this word right here, which is nothing but his story. You didn't know that? It's all history is. It's somebody's story. You know what I'm talking about. Columbus didn't discover America. He was lost. And the end discovered him. And Abraham Lincoln didn't free any slaves. Or another way to look at it, my story is very, very close to the word mystery. And I want to clear up a couple of mysteries right now. The book is titled Great People, Past and Present. What happened to a people that built the pyramids and yet now live in projects? What happened? What happened to a people that are the first to read and write using a term called hieroglyphics and yet now can no longer read or write? In essence, what happened to a people in terms of Egypt? It's amazing. King Tut came to America and we didn't realize that King Tut was one of us. Somebody mysteriously took Egypt out of Africa and placed it in the Middle East. Now, how do you take a country out of a continent and then call it something else? As a result, we didn't realize that Egypt is in Africa. Egyptians are Africans, and we were the ones that built those pyramids. But my new history book, Lessons from History, Celebration in Blackness, for elementary, and there's also one for high school. You see, we are concerned about some issues here. The first one being, where do you start? You see, we have found that many black youth are embarrassed talking about the history. The Jews, now about the Holocaust, but us about slavery. I think one reason is where you start. The law says where you start will determine where you end up. Now, where do you want to start our children? If they started in 1619, they start on a plantation. That means they'll probably end up in a ghetto. But if you start 4 million years ago on a pyramid, they end up being free. Now, where do you want to start? On a plantation or on a pyramid? Because depending upon where you start will determine where they end up. Our first problem is we've been starting in the wrong place. And you cannot discuss 4 million years in 28 days. Black History Month. Now, I'm glad we got the month. It used to be a week. But you can't discuss 4 million years in 28 days. It's simply not enough time. And then the other issue, what are we going to discuss? You see, if we're always going to discuss our names and dates and events, then you can do that in about 28 days. When was King born? 29. When did he go to D.C.? 63. When did he get the Nobel Prize? 64. When did he die? 68. That would never change. But if you want to make it relevant, you connect the past with the present and with the future. In other words, what were our mistakes? Because the mistakes you want to avoid, and the strengths you want to reinforce. I'll say it clearly. Those that don't know their history, don't know their mistakes, are destined to repeat it over and over and over and over again. Our children need to know their story, and it did not start here. And it should be more than just names and dates and events. But let me calm down and go on. There's still two answers left, Africa and America. But there's a tremendous difference between who you are and where you're born. My hometown, Chicago, the ex-mayor, Daley. If you had asked Daley where he was born, he'd have said he was born in the USA. But ask Daley who he was. Ask him where his roots are. And he'd say his roots are in Ireland. Next stop, East Coast, Philadelphia. The ex-mayor there, Rizzo. If you ask Rizzo where he was born, he too would say the USA. But ask Rizzo who he is. Ask him where his roots are. And he'd say his roots are in Italy. But I think you know what I'm talking about. You and your husband, you and your wife are traveling across the world, and you're pregnant, and you gave birth to a child in Russia. Would your son or daughter be Russian? You're not sure? Next stop, China. And you gave birth to a child in China. Would your son or daughter be Chinese? Hold on. You still not sure? Suppose you gave birth to a child in an airplane in the middle of no place. What are you going to call your child then? Delta Airlines or United Airlines? Just because you're born in America doesn't make you an American. If someone asks you where you're born in America. But if someone asks you who you are, where your roots are, you either say African American or European American or Mexican American, but the who always comes first. Education is more than reading. It should first of all teach you who you are. But you know what else it should teach you? It should make you feel good about yourself. Now the question is, what makes you feel good about yourself? What gives you strong self-esteem? Well, we believe first, your relationship with God. Second, unconditional love from your parents. Third, high expectations from teachers. Fourth, feeling good about your race, color of your skin, and texture of your hair. And lastly, knowing where your talents are. Because of time, I want to look at this one, the issue of race. There's a rumor going around that some of us, hopefully not in this room, are still using terms like good hair. And that to me is deep. You see, if you know what good hair is, then you must know what bad hair is. If you know what pretty eyes are, you must know what ugly eyes are. That's dialectic, the law of opposites. Our bestseller for children is called Colors Around Me. We believe that our children come in all different colors. But no matter what color they are beautiful just the way they are. Now, what I've noticed speaking to the primary grade children across the country, they clap for all of them. So the Emily is brown like chocolate cake and very pretty. And Robbie is red like cinnamon rolls and very handsome. The primary grades clap for all the children. But the upper grade laugh at Michael, who's black like licorice candy. And they also laugh at Joseph, who's black like ebony wood. Now, you would think that the older our children are, the greater self-esteem would be. But exactly the opposite. And my question to you, what is it about America's images, where the longer these children live here, the less they feel about themselves? And remember, Renee is golden like a peach. And the upper grade clap for Renee, and they laugh at Joseph. Well, the reason is very simple. We allow somebody else to define for us what beauty is. If America defines beauty as light skin, long hair, and blue eyes as beautiful, haven't they told you what ugly is? It must be the exact opposite. It must be dark skin, short hair, and broad features. Once you know what is, you automatically know what's not. But you know what's amazing? When I was in Florida, I found Europeans trying their best to run down to Florida to get a suntan to look like us. And then I found us running home with Noxzema and cream trying to look like them. You didn't know that racism is a sign of insecurity? People that are secure are comfortable with differences. Only insecure people, we need to rationalize because they are different. It makes them better. But let me tease you one step further. It's the first day of school, and Renee comes walking to your classroom with her pretty dress on, her hair floating in the wind. And like all little boys, Joseph comes in behind her. But on this day of accident, on his way to school, did not make it to the executive room in time. Now, do you sincerely believe that Joseph can learn as much as Renee? If you don't, you aren't fit to teach our children. There are teachers who believe that Renee is smarter than Joseph. And when they believe that, she just becomes smarter than Joseph. Do you know how many black women, even in this room, can't swim? Afraid that it's going to go back? Go back to where? Where are you afraid of it going back to? This is deep. Do you think that what happened in slavery is over? Read Peculiar Institution by Kenneth Stamps, the slave-making process. We have to work on those kinds of issues. Before we go into our next workshop on curriculum, any comments about student self-esteem, the role it plays in academic achievement? I believe you cannot do a good job in school if you don't like the way you look. Yes?
How do you attack the racial self-esteem within the peer group? For example, a boy saying she's good looking for a black skin or dark skinned girl, or vice versa. How do you attack that in the peer group? What are some ways of looking at it?
I think we have to confront it head on. In other words, the real damage now is not done between white and black. It's done among the black peer group, black adults as well. And so we have to confront that. We have to show them the beauty and strengths of their color. In other words, we don't have time to discuss this afternoon, but what are the benefits of dark skin? What are the benefits of your natural hair? See, we hear all about the benefits of being light-skinned or being white or having European-style hair. What are the benefits of dark skin? There are a lot of benefits. Yes?
You mentioned that schools should have more than just read, write, and arithmetic.
Correct.
What effects do you feel that this new trend of back to basics, you know, it says only teach math, reading, and writing, will that not eventually have an effect on how we teach black kids, because boards of education are trying to get away from black history and Black History Month and all that stuff?
Well, I think that those progressive educators realize that back to basics doesn't have to exclude black history, that if the accent is on reading, we don't have a problem with that. We're also in favor of moving to phonetics rather than the sight approach and the word approach. So I don't have a problem with back to basics. But when you have back to basics, just be sensitive about the literature in which you choose. We have to begin to work on those kinds of situations. Because of our time, let me begin to move on. Our next workshop is on curriculum and methodology and learning styles. One of our concerns comes from James Banks, multicultural education. It's the code word now, multicultural. Now, my concern is if it's multicultural, not quote-unquote white history, then we will no longer have world history through European eyes. We will put the event in the middle, and we will see what everyone says about the same event. In other words, we'll call this the Asians and Africans and the Europeans and the Hispanics and the Native Americans. I also gave you a clue. This is also the order of world population. We are not the minority. There are 700 million of us living in the world. Asians are first and we're second. We're not the minority. 80% of the world's population has color. We are not the minority. But the point I want to make here is, if the event goes in the center, not a people, but an event, then we go around the world giving each group an equal amount of time to give their side to the story. That's what will make it multicultural. For example, if the event was Columbus coming to America, Europeans would say Columbus discovered America. But the Native Americans say Columbus was lost and they discovered him. Same event, but these two groups see it differently. Slavery. Europeans would say slavery was good for America. But Africans would say the black family was almost, not quite, was almost destroyed. World War II. Europeans would say World War II was good for the American economy. But Asians would say they were placed in camps in California. Same event, but these two groups see it differently. If it's multicultural, no group is in the center. But when you run the world, then you can do whatever you want. Columbus can discover America. Lincoln can be the one that freed the slaves. You can even make, if you want to, America large in Africa. Africa is 2.5 times the size of the United States. But when you run the world, you can make America large in Africa. You can even move Africa over here and put America in the middle. I challenge you, in your school system, do you have maps showing Africa larger than America? Do you have maps that show Africa in the center of the world? That's exactly where it is. A multicultural education. But beyond content, let's also look at learning styles. The work is from Piaget, from Asa Hilliard, from Janice Hale Benson, titled Black Children, Their Roots, Their Culture, Their Learning Styles. Remember when you were in school, it's called a split brain theory. The rumor is they're walking around with half a brain. The split brain theory. Remember, when you were in school, the rule was that instructors teach their subjects, but teachers understand how children learn. There are two sides to the brain. There's the right side of the brain, which is holistic. It sees everything. Very good in areas like music and in sports. That's the right side of the brain. But you also have the left side of the brain, very analytical. It breaks things into parts. Very good in math and in science. Now, it has been said in some private academic circles that people of color are better on the right side of the brain, and that people that lack color are better on the left side of the brain. Now, my question to you, did God go to sleep with black folks on the left, but wake up on their right? Did God wake up with Europeans on their left, but go back to sleep on their right? And before you answer, please remember, 86% of the NBA, National Basketball Association, starters are black. But only 1% of the engineers in this country are black. And isn't it true that all black folks can dance? That we all got rhythm? Is it physical or is it cultural? Come on now. Can't hear you.
Cultural.
Cultural. Now, I agree with you, Terry, but our children don't. Our children believe, I could probably ask anyone here in Cincinnati in terms of the youth to go one-on-one with any white boy on a basketball court, they'd have no problems. But will be scared stiff in the laboratory. I believe as you do. I believe it's cultural. But our children believe they have a better chance of doing well on the right side of the brain. You see, my concern is that you do most will be that you do best. But more importantly, that you are allowed to do. We've always been encouraged to sing and dance and play basketball, but not to become involved in math and science. But remember, there are 5 ways to communicate an idea in a classroom. And those 5 are written, which is left brain, oral stories, right brain, pictures, right brain, fine arts, right brain, and artifacts, right brain. There are 5 ways to communicate an idea in a classroom. Most schools use an exclusive left brain methodology and a left brain test with large numbers of right brain thinking children. A tremendous tragedy. There are 2 ways to learn left and right side of the brain. Now here's the way the exercises go. If you want a left brain lesson plan, it goes like this. Read the definition. Write the definition. Purely left brain. Read it and write it. If you want to go from left, not to right, but left to whole brain, using both sides, read the definition and then draw what you think you just read. Then you'd have to integrate the left and right side of the brain. You know we have people in this room with BAs, MAs, and PhDs, still drawing with stick figures, still drawing like 4th graders. It's not your fault. When you were in school, they belittled the right side of the brain. Let me give you a homework assignment. I want you to develop a right brain lesson plan and then evaluate it with a right brain instrument. We have got to find ways to meet our children where they are. They have a strength that we have not been using. And I wish we could have a lot more time on this major area of learning styles. But because of our time, we're now down to about 5 or 7 minutes. I want to now move into the best for last. I want to now look at teacher expectations. I want to now talk about you. I'm now quoting from the work of Wilbur Brookover and Ron Edmonds. They wanted to find out what was the major reason for academic achievement. I am proud to report 3rd, not number 1, is the student's socio-economic background. Some of us still keep believing, well, how much money is in the home? How many parents are there? It is not number 1. It is 3rd on the list. The 2nd is the school per pupil expenditure. Some of us still keep believing, well, what color is the school bus? How thick is the carpet? Well, that is also not number 1. How much money is in the school or in the home has never been number 1. Number 1 has never changed. Number 1 remains teacher expectations. Tuscaloosa, Alabama, 1920. 1-room school shack, 40 students. The roof was leaking. Only 2 books, and all 40 students learned. Beyond Piaget, beyond Montessori, beyond Glasser, beyond Goodlad, education boils down to 1 word and 1 word only. Do you believe that our children can learn? That seems very simple. The key word is expectations. You know the program. It's called TESSA. Teacher expectation, student achievement. The theory is if you increase this, you increase this. But what we found out was teachers are human. Many teachers lower expectations on 4 factors. Brookover gives those 4 as race, income, gender, and appearance. In other words, many teachers lower their expectations based upon the race of the child, the income of the child, the gender of the child, and how the child looks. One teacher wanted to give me another I want to share with you now. She also said, Jawanza, I know it's not right, but I also am affected by the parents show up. In other words, I've noticed I respond differently to certain children if I know the parents are involved. I know it's not correct, but that's exactly what I do. 5 major areas that affect expectations. So again, the program is called TESSA. It goes into your classroom with a video camera, with your peers, with an administrator, trying to see if they can monitor expectations. And you know the 3 strands of TESSA. One is response opportunities. Another one is feedback. And the last one is personal regard. What TESSA attempts to do is to see if you can give all 30 children the same number of opportunities. TESSA believes you learn best when you're involved in the process. Now, this is very hard to do. If we were talking about a white teacher with 30 white children, or a blind teacher with 30 blind children, to give all 30 children the same number of opportunities to respond. TESSA believes this is necessary in order to grow and develop. Now, many teachers say is, well, Jawanza, the reason why I don't call on Willie is that Willie don't know the answer. Well, see, the problem is, when you stop calling on Willie back in October, if you wanted to call on him now in May, he wouldn't know the answer because he believes you're not going to call on him anyway. And then the other one I hear so much of, well, time is so tight. I can't afford to waste time on Willie. Well, see, the problem is, that may be correct in the short term. But when we talk about somebody's life that we're now destroying, that could be involved in prison later, in the long term, it's better to call on Willie now than have him taking all that money from us in prison later on. We've got to begin to look at having all the children involved. And then the next area, feedback. 2 students, Willie, the low achiever, and the high achiever. You call on Willie first, he gets the answer wrong. You probably stay with Willie 1 second, then you go on to Ann. She also got the answer wrong, but she's your higher achiever. So you stay with Ann a little long. Come on, Ann, you know it. And they begin to give clue and clue. 5 minutes later, Ann finally comes with the answer. In other words, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That Ann feels better about herself because we've given her more feedback, more reinforcement. And then, of course, the last one, the one I'm concerned about the most, and that's personal regard. That's attitude. TESSA believes you should touch the children. Let them know that you care. Let them know that you love them. So what happens? We send teachers to TESSA training, and they come back saying, I touched you. I love you. I like you. But the problem is the children know it's still not there. It's not real. This cannot be taught. You either love them or you don't. In Cincinnati or wherever we are in the country, please don't put all the schools in the same category. Ron Evans, before he died, developed the Effective Schools Project. What makes effective schools? There are 3 major factors. 1, they have strong leadership. In other words, please don't think every school in Cincinnati or in Princeton County School District are in the same category. Because first of all, good principals spend very little time in their office. You see, the good ones are instructional leaders. They're involved in the classroom. They're involved in the corridors. In other words, they realize they should be involved in the educational process. They get there early and stay late. Paperwork done early. They get involved with the students throughout the day. Good principals also have workshops for their teachers, especially in the 3rd and 4th quarter, where you begin to have teacher burnout. You don't need me now in August and September. Oh, but in January and March and April, where you have teacher burnout, there's some serious problems there. I know you're not going to like this. I also believe the principals should take their teachers out to lunch. Have Teacher of the Month awards. In other words, a good principal is a good coach. They have to find ways to keep their staff motivated. Good schools have strong leadership. Secondly, they have teachers, as I said earlier, who give high expectations. What am I getting at? It has been said that in low-achieving schools, the most negative room in the school is the teacher cafeteria. Because in that room, you hear comments like this: you can't help these children. These children can't learn. And you know what happens? For the new teacher just coming in, they get swayed the negative way. But you see, in a high-achieving school, the principal plants a spy in the teacher cafeteria. They want to know who's making those kind of comments. It's amazing. The good teachers in 201 and 206, you know what they tell me? They don't go to the teacher cafeteria. But the poor ones in 202 and 204, in there all day long. It's amazing how the negative forces do a much better job of organizing than the positive forces. And then the last factor, time on task. There are many schools giving children a lot more time on instruction than other schools. We have to work on these 3 areas: strong leadership, high expectations, and a lot more time on task. Closing point. There are 3 kinds of adults in our classrooms: instructors, teachers, and coaches. We have a lot more instructors than we do teachers. Let me define terms. An instructor means just that. I teach chemistry, teach geometry. I got mine, you get yours. And they mean that. They only deal with their subject matter. They don't deal with learning style. They don't deal with motivation, self-esteem. It's not in that job description. I got mine, you get yours. Now, you know what's sad? With a high dropout rate, we have a lot more instructors in the upper grades than we need to. Second group, they not only deal with subject matter, but they also deal with learning style. They realize that children have different learning styles. You know what teachers do? They give right brain lesson plans as well. And they use right brain ways to evaluate learning. Not just a test, but hands-on learning activities. And then the last group, they not only deal with subject matter, not only deal with learning style, but they also deal with motivation. They also deal with self-esteem. What am I getting at? You see, a coach understands. Here's how instructors do it. Class, turn to page 10. Now, the students probably turn the same level of enthusiasm you said turn to page 10. A coach realizes, I can't teach these children. They first of all don't believe I asked them to offer them. So a coach would close the book and begin to ask, what do your adults tell you? You know what I found out? They say two things. One, get a good education. And the second thing you tell me is to work hard. So then we ask the young people, what do you want to say? Well, get a good education for what? And work hard for who? Now these to me are two very good questions. If working hard was the solution, black people should be running the world. Do you know anybody who's worked harder than us? Our children are tired of being the employee. Quit telling them to get a good education, to get a good job. Teach them they can also be employer. But the real issue here, as our time begins to run down, a good education. They watch you with your good education. But many of us work a J-O-B. Now, if all the good education got you was a J-O-B that you don't like, that means they never end up living for T-G-I-F, money. Now, if all you have to do is motivate them with some money, our children are sharp. There are other ways to make this besides a good education. With the four main sources being drugs, sports, music, and crime. You are not going to motivate black youth if all you have to offer them is money. Closing point, the issue is not money. The issue is talents. You didn't know? I'm at work right now. You see, if you have a job, you watch the clock all day long. But if you have a career, then you know where your talents are. And you love what you do so much, you'd be willing to do it for free. But because you do it so well, you get paid for it. Last question. I want all the instructors to raise their hands. I want all the teachers to raise their hands. I want all the coaches to raise their hands. Very good. Thank you very much. Give yourselves a strong round of applause.